Hi everyone, can you hear me well? This time I can see your comments. Hopefully. Let's see. I'm just waiting just a little bit. Just gonna maximize your comments so that I can see them well. There we are. Now you shouldn't hear me repeating myself. I think there's a little bit of lag. So I want to talk to you guys about some of the news that's been happening. There's been a oil tanker, that's the Iranian oil tanker that blew up off the coast of Saudi Arabia, and how that's related to what's happening in Syria. Perhaps a bit about the current situation in Syria, the propaganda that we're hearing. There has been an attack on a US base by Turkey. There was some shelling. So we want to get to all of that. I'm just going to check if there's any poor thing damned Wi-Fi issues again. Oops. Well, I'm going to fix that soon, guys. I'm going to get NBN, which is new here in Australia. You're finally going to have okay internet for the first time in Australia's life. It's going to have something that is more than third world internet, hopefully. So thank you for sharing information about this issue. Okay, excellent. So let's get right into it, if you guys don't mind. First of all, a lot of this stuff happens on Twitter, and I just react to it on Twitter. But I'd like to talk to you guys as well on my YouTube platform, and other platforms as well. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna refer a lot to my Twitter account. I hope that's not too boring for any of you. Okay, so if you've heard on the news recently that Kurds have, ISIS have escaped some prison somewhere in Syria. This is a Kurdish spokesman that's saying that. About 5 ISIS militants have escaped. So don't worry, the Kurds haven't lost their entire handful of pet ISIS. That they're just going to release them slowly. Because at the end of the day, this is propaganda. In reality, they didn't break out because of Turkish shelling. The Kurds released them, or they're just making this whole thing up. Because Kurdish fighters have been discussing releasing almost 3,200. So sorry about this. I think someone's telling me that the screen is cropped and you can't see the full screen. So I think I'm going to fix that. Let me see if that's the case. I see. Yep, it is certainly cropped. There we go. Is this better, everyone? I'm so sorry. You guys okay? Okay, so I hope that's better. Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, the news is ISIS has escaped. And this is really convenient because the whole point of this is that, the US needs to stay, because if they don't stay, then ISIS is going to come back. That's how they're holding the US hostage, basically. So, of course, last year when Trump tried to pull out, we had these reports that Kurds were discussing releasing 3,200 prisoners if Trump withdraws troops. So it's not, it's very obvious what they're trying to do here. I mean, they don't care really about fighting ISIS. This has all been about what they can get from fighting ISIS. Yeah, so if ISIS escapes, Orange Man bad. Exactly. That's the propaganda. Like, oh, look what Trump did. Because if you guys remember, the last time he tried to pull out of Syria, there was a ISIS attack that killed 3 CIA agents. Let me see if I can bring that up. Three CIA, sorry, typo. 3 CIA agents killed, ISIS attack, and I think it was in the city of Manbij. Now, the interesting thing is that Manbij, this was January, I guess. Manbij had no ISIS in it at the time, and had no ISIS in it after this incident. I'm not gonna log in, New York Times, I'm not gonna pay you. You're not the only one with the news. This is current year, and nobody pays for news anymore, unless they really support the individual. Okay, so yes, these CIA agents were killed at the time, and this incident was used by Lindsey Graham to say that the US needs to stay in Syria. The interesting thing is, those CIA agents were meeting with Kurdish officials in a secret meeting that only the Kurds knew about. You guys see what I'm getting at here? Do you see what's happening? I mean, it doesn't take a genius, but people are expected to be stupid, and unfortunately many of them are. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many people called me and told me, oh, how sorry I am that the US is pulling out. Like friends of mine, and it's something I've been campaigning for years. So that's how the media likes to keep you. Well, we can talk about that one later, but another piece of propaganda that they've been spreading is that the Christians really, really want the US to stay. And they're afraid of the Turkish invasion. They're afraid of being ethnically cleansed by the coming wave of Al-Qaeda. Now, of course, the Assyrian Christians, which is a minority ethnic group in the northeast of Syria, they are threatened by Turkey, but they're also threatened by the Kurds and have been for years. And this is a statement that they released. Syrian Christians proclaim Trump is right on Syria. The YPG Kurds are responsible for the escalation in the northeast. So they blame the Kurds for the Turkish invasion, which is a fact, because Turkey wouldn't be invading had the US not armed the PKK and the YPG. They wouldn't feel threatened to do so. And not to mention the fact that the Kurds have been pursuing their own agenda, and they've been ethnically cleansing Assyrians and Christians. So if you take a look at this, it says Trump may lead to peace. Now, this is if he pulls out completely, which he hasn't. We need to make that clear. He may want to pull out troops completely, but he's getting a lot of resistance. And the situation is that the US has only moved the troops south towards the oil fields, which has to do with why the Iranian oil tanker was blown up, which we will talk about after this. But it's very important to note, you know, when they try to create these puppet mouthpieces, or the media tries to speak for the Syrian Christians, they never show you what they're actually saying, what their organizations are officially saying. And in this case, they're saying that they want the US and Turkey out, and they want the Syrian army in. The PKK, YPG Kurds must give up their armed struggle for autonomy and the idea of a state called Kurdistan in the homeland of Arameans and the Aramaic language. So the YPG Kurds had ample time and opportunity to take away the security concerns of Damascus or Ankara. So this is what they are saying. So if we look at what's been happening in the past, everything the Kurds have done to the Assyrian Christians is coming back to bite, because the policy that they've been pursuing of disarming them, of assassinating their leaders, of confiscating their homes, of shutting down their schools, you know, they thought that they could keep these people quiet forever. But that's now that the tables have turned, a lot is coming out again. And if you look at some of the tweets that are being tweeted, you're seeing a lot of nonsense about Kurds protecting the Christians in Syria. The YPG has killed Assyrian leaders, shut down schools, beaten and threatened every Christian who stood against their separatist agenda. And you can check out this very extensive documented report about it. Again, Syriac Orthodox bishop visits with Christian victims in Qamishli. Yes, the Turkish invasion is hurting the Christians, but the US occupation is also hurting them. So the only solution is the Syrian army. So this is the victims, and they're saying that the Kurdish YPG is refusing to allow the Syrian army to secure the northeast of Syria, causing more suffering for Syrian Christians. You will never get that in the mainstream media. They don't want you to hear these people. They just want to use them as human shields. Everything I'm talking about, of course, you can look it up. It's very interesting because actually the media hasn't even ever mentioned the existence of Assyrian Christians in the Kurdish area. It's not been news until now. Suddenly they're acknowledging their existence because they think they can use it to get evangelicals on board with keeping US troops in Syria. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. So just gonna shut down these since we've seen them. This guy has a really, really amazing thread, and I'd like to guys to read it because it's so important. I have a comment here. AJ, my Syriac family is in Qamishli and they support the Syrian government. My cousins are in the Syrian army. Well, I salute you, and I salute your cousins. So, is it true that 100,000 Kurds are on the move, or are only Christians on the move? I would imagine that the Christians will not move because they've been through so much this whole war that the people who have chosen to stay are doing it out of principle, not because they don't have an opportunity to leave. As for Kurds, I suppose I would think that, yeah, because at the end of the day, they're going to be Turkey's focus. I would imagine that some of them would be on the move. So, yes, it doesn't really have anything to do necessarily with Christianity, but this is something that is something that evangelicals are interested in. But the fact is that Assyrians are not just their religion, they're also an ethnic group, and they've been in that region longer than Kurds have. I mean, Kurds are recently newcomers to Syria. They came after the uprising after World War I, and that's why they're concentrated all along the borders of Syria. So they've been trying to create a Kurdistan in what is the home of Arameans, Syrians, and Assyrians, and perhaps even the Arab Bedouins who were also there longer than Kurds have. So that's why their state is basically, they're trying to build it on stolen land, and it's not feasible. A lot of these Assyrians have been afraid to speak out because they're in the heart of Kurdish occupation in Iraq and Syria. So a lot of them have, not come out on video talking about this. Where is she looking at the questions here, or Twitter? No, I have a separate screen and I'm looking at the questions over there. So let me read this out, if you don't mind. Seeing Turkey's terrorists invading my home in northern Syria is painful. But for the last 8 years, I had to watch as the YPG took our homes, burned our villages, closed our schools, conscripted our children by force, and made us outsiders in the land we have lived for millennia. Yes, the YPG are no better than Turkey, Islamist puppets, and opposing Turkey's illegal invasion of Syria doesn't justify supporting the terrorist YPG instead. As a person from northern Syria, I avoided speaking out against the YPG on Twitter because I had no energy to argue with the deluded leftist Westerners, liberals, who fell for the pictures of the SDF with female soldiers and suddenly became experts on northern Syria. The only legitimate force in Syria is the Syrian Arab army, and that's the only force that my people would feel safe living under. You can take your FSA Islamist terrorists and your fetishes for SDF female fighters and leave us alone. I think in another thread, this guy described how he was forcibly pushed out by the Kurds because they forced him to sell his home for 1/10 of the price. I think that was him. I'm not sure if it was him specifically. But the propaganda that you're hearing, it's revolting because it doesn't pay attention to the real people on the ground and what they want. Essentially this. So now I want to get to another topic. The fact that the State Department has officially admitted that they were arming the PKK. And Trump actually admitted this too on one of his speeches. And they've been trying to deny this for the last 8 years. And the reason that's significant is because the US has the PKK listed as a terrorist organization. And of course the YPG is just the Syrian wing of the PKK. It's just a different acronym for the same group, and that was supposed to be the US is out. The US State Department's out. So yeah, they've been funding what is essentially a terrorist organization, just as they did with Al-Qaeda. But of course, no one's going to go to jail. Again, they're allowed, the government of the US is allowed to fund terrorism abroad. But different rules apply to different people, I guess. So here's the trick though. Even though the neocons, what is the difference between Syrian and Assyrian? That is a very, very complex question. They were once the same, and then they separated, and they became the same again, and then they separated. Historically, they've always been connected. So you can think of Assyrians as Eastern Arameans and Syrians as Western Arameans. And in fact, that's what they refer to their languages as West Aramaic and East Aramaic. But they used to be we all used to be Assyria at one point, and we all used to speak Aramaic. So, okay, Trump, as I said earlier, he's getting a lot of pushback of he's trying to pull the troops out, but of course it's not the case. He has, in fact, unfortunately been unable to do that. He's only been able to push them away from, are they the Sumerians? Okay, guys, ancient history questions. I think we'll have to get to. Isn't most of Syria Aramean? Yeah, it is. We do have other minorities, but yeah, the majority is ethnically Aramean. Okay, guys. I'm gonna get to the current one because otherwise ancient history is too big a topic, and I don't feel confident to get to it yet. We'll make a video about it eventually though. So Tulsi is the only politician that pointed this out. On the left and the right, you had people screeching about why is Trump pulling troops out and abandoning the Kurds? We have to keep the troops in. Tulsi is the only one that said no, he's not pulling troops out. He's been unable to do that. He's only moving them to the oil fields. This is her video here talking about it. And as a result of only moving them to the oil fields, he's in fact been the US soldiers are still blocking the advance of the Syrian army. Instead of demanding he keeps troops in to save the Kurds, she's saying he needs to pull them all out so that the Syrian army can go in and the Kurds can make a deal with Damascus, which is completely logical. I mean, Tulsi is not perfect, of course. People they have their concerns about her, the CFR, the Zionism aspect of some of her Hindu supporters. I feel that, but at the same time, the woman is not wrong here, So I'm just gonna judge her on what she does, and at the moment, she's on the right side of history. So I guess on that note, I want to show you guys a map of the current situation. You can hope this doesn't make you dizzy. These are all not the map that I'm looking for. Okay, here's one such map. So here's a 2009 map before the war began of Syria's ethno-religious groups. And because it's pre-2009, it didn't have a lot of the propaganda attached to it. So if I were to show you the original image of this, you'd see that it said that the Kurds were 9% of Syria's population, not 15% as they're trying to push out now. So if you look at their locations, you'll notice that it is not overlapping where the US is trying to create the Kurdistan. They're all localized on the Syrian-Turkish border because that's where they came from Turkey. The oil fields are down here in Deir ez-Zor. So if you look at this map, this is also Turkey's proposed buffer zone, which will overlap the Kurdish populated areas. While they move in, US troops are moving down to the oil fields. That's, I guess, their biggest concern. Why is that? Why are the oil fields important? Does the US need so much oil? No, they have enough. What they really want is to prevent Syrians from getting to their own oil. Because they feel that if Syrians get their oil, then they will be able to rebuild, they will be able to mobilize the army better, and they'll pose a threat to Israel. So the idea is to prevent Syria from ever being able to stand back up on its feet. Because the US is occupying the oil fields, there's been an oil shortage in Syria. You have taxi cabs lined up, the cars are choked, they've stopped in the middle of the road, they're trying to fuel them, but there isn't any fuel to fuel. Winter is coming and people are living in bombed out houses that don't even have any, cover. And they're supposed to do that without oil because gotta save the Kurds, right? That's what the liberals are trying to tell us. That we have to starve Syrians of any means of ever standing back up on their feet because of Kurds. It's a bit racist, don't you think? So the only way that Syria has been getting oil, because the US has been occupying Syria's oil fields, and Syria doesn't even have that much oil to begin with, by the way. They have enough to sustain themselves, but not really enough to export. So it's not like it's all about the oil. No, it's about preventing people from controlling their own oil. Because of that, Iran's been supplying Syria with oil through their oil tankers. And of course, I'm sure if you've heard on the news that Iranian oil tankers have been stopped on the Spanish border by the British, and in Gibraltar, I believe the name of the place is. And now there's been an attack by a torpedo against one of these oil tankers, which is that it's been said that tanker was headed to Syria. So they're really just trying to stop the Syrian military from being able to use fuel to mobilize. And of course, Israel has been suspected in that attack, even though it was off the coast of Saudi Arabia. So it's funny when you watch a lot of these carbon credit promoting rallies by XR Rebellion, you never hear a critique of war from them, or how a torpedo that struck an oil tanker is spilling all that oil into the sea. And what about the carbon cost there? I mean, nobody talks about that. And you'll never hear Greta talking about it either. Because the whole point of the XR Rebellion is to push a new currency of the carbon credit. It's not really about the environment. Net zero carbon doesn't mean zero carbon. It means buy our carbon credits. That's what it means. Anyway, I just wanted to point out that piece of hypocrisy because it's really annoying. So we talked about that. Yep. Don't exclude Israel as a possibility. So, what do the neocons want? They want to stop Turkey's offensive. Thing is, though, the US can't return fire at Turkey. For a very good reason. Actually, multiple reasons. Number one, Turkey is a member of NATO. And in fact, it's the second largest army of NATO, which means it's larger than the British and the French. And its location is very strategic. It's the tip of NATO's sword. If NATO loses Turkey, you can just forget about NATO. It doesn't exist. So not only that, but the US has soldiers inside Turkey in bases, like in Incirlik. So if the US starts attacking Turkey, then you can forget about those bases. I mean, Turkey can attack the US military inside Turkey, or it can just ask them to leave. It's as simple as that. On top of this, where is the US going to get its supply lines into Syria? From Turkey. These neocons are actually promoting a no-fly zone against Turkey. But who's going to impose the no-fly zone on Turkey? The only anti-air weapons that the US has are in Turkey. So the neocons are saying that Turkey should impose a no-fly zone on itself. It's hilarious. I mean, one of these tweeps, I guess the word is, that I follow is Lina Arabi, and she just makes me laugh because she points out their hypocrisy in such a sarcastic way. You guys check her out. She does other funny things, but let's see if I can bring her up. One of her tweets. Man. Yeah, NATO is not going to impose a no-fly zone on NATO to stop another NATO country through the use of NATO assets located in said NATO country's closest NATO ally to shoot down NATO jets should they violate the NATO-imposed no-fly zone. It's hilarious. And, and to see the same people who've tirelessly complained that Trump isn't committed enough to protect NATO allies, now arguing that he should blow up NATO. So it's hilarious. But here's the final reason why the US can do nothing about Turkey's incursion into Syria, and the reason why it was able to start while US troops were already in the area and haven't completely pulled out yet. I mean, the claim is that, Trump pulled out, so Turkey was able to come in. Well, it's all Trump's fault. Orange man bad. He pulled out, and that's why Turkey is able to genocide the Kurds. No. The Turkish invasion began, and Trump had no choice but to pull out. Because at the end of the day, Russia sold Turkey S-400s. And much to the US's chagrin, the air defenses that the US military sold to Turkey is still controlled by the US. I'm sure they have fail switches, so their own weapons can't be used against them. But Russian weapons can be used against them. So even if they try to go to war with Turkey, all the US's 1,000 soldiers, their only defense is their air supremacy. And they do not have that over Syria. They don't have it because of the Syrian S-300s now, and they don't have it because of the Turkish S-400s that were just bought off Russia. And Russia's playing a very strategic chess game here in trying to pull, people criticized Russia for selling these S-400s to Turkey and not to Syria. Of course, they should have given us S-400s as well, but some people say we already have them, but I haven't seen that. But nevertheless, this is a game that's going to be helpful in the end, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to pull Turkey away from NATO. And the US's neocons are helping with that. I mean, why would the US alienate its, strongest ally in NATO, biggest military, and in order to help a ragtag team of these, teenage Kurdish girls with guns? Like, what is it in their intro? Is it because of ISIS? No. They could have stood back and had the Syrian army defeat ISIS. It's not about that. If you write teenage, they don't want to admit that they're teenage girls, but if I write Kurds, it's going to be all women. Some of them are 14, but that doesn't matter to to the liberals. It's okay to use child soldiers when it's for Marxism or whatever. So if the US was really looking after its interests, it wouldn't try to alienate its own allies for something that's not really going to benefit them. So what is this all for? Of course it's for Israel. I don't know if you guys have been following me, but that's why, that's who is behind this whole Kurdistan thing. Have you guys seen this? Greater Israel. It explains why the Euphrates River is a demarcation line for Kurdistan, because from the Nile to the Euphrates, that is the Ben Gurion or the biblical claim of Israel. And so the US doesn't care about Kurds west of the Euphrates. They care about them east of the Euphrates, because they only want to create a Kurdistan east of the Euphrates, even if it doesn't really overlap with the Kurdish population. They're still trying to push that to happen, because that's part of the greater plan. So that's one of the reasons they've alienated Turkey. And if you look at, and of course the neocons don't care if American soldiers are killed in the crossfire or they put their lives in danger. Of course, they don't want to tell you, but there's already been deaths by crossfire even before this Turkish invasion. They've already lost a man who was embedded with Kurdish troops. Now, the official claim is that he died because of an accident. Well, maybe you could say that Turkish bombing of his own allies was an accident. He didn't die because of a shaving accident. He didn't fall out of bed wrong. Obviously, he died because he was hit by a bomb of some kind. So, in claiming that Trump, these cross-border fights were already happening, US soldiers were already under threat. So it's not like Trump pulled them out for no reason. They wouldn't leave unless they were forced to leave. In saying all of this, of course, the Turkish invasion is a threat. It is against Syrian sovereignty. But the thing is that Syria has already been invaded by Turkey. That's one of the things that the media just didn't care about. When Turkey invaded Idlib and supported Al-Qaeda, where was the outcry? Where were the protests? Where were the liberals then? Nowhere. When, during Operation Euphrates Shield, the US requested that the Kurds pull back from Manbij and allow Turkish soldiers in, where was the outcry? And Olive Branch and Euphrates Shield, there was none. The US and the UK were on Turkey's side in that. And of course, Afrin, what happened there? The Kurds basically gave up that territory to Turkey with minimal fight. They lost it in a matter of days. So that all of that happened west of the Euphrates, so it didn't really get in the way of the greater Israel plan. And the question is, have the Kurds learned that they are nothing without the US or Syria? They can't fight the battle against Turkey. Therefore, since they should make a deal with the Syrian army, allow them to go east, past Deir ez-Zor, past the oil fields, and on to Hasakeh and Qamishli, and to defend Syria's border. Are they going to make that deal? Well, apparently not. Apparently, they're still obsessed with the idea of creating a separatist state called Kurdistan, and they have refused to make the deal. And what they offered Damascus is that the Syrian army only be allowed to act as human shields and create a sliver buffer on the border between Turkey and Syria. Well, forget it. That's not going to happen. The Syrian military is going to liberate every inch of Syria, and there's not going to be any kind of federalism. And the Syrian, this all happened, of course, a week to the day that Syria announced a constitutional committee to write a new constitution and excluded the Kurds, because there's just not going to be a Kurdistan. And that was basically the nail in the coffin of the idea that the US can stay in Syria permanently, because they have no legal basis to do so unless they create a Kurdistan the same way they did in Iraq and have their regional government, autonomous regional government, give them permission to be there. And it's not going to happen. And at the same time, when the SDF approached Damascus to make the deal, they actually made the mistake of openly saying that they're only talking to Damascus because they want to pressure the US to stay in Syria. So if they're not serious about making the deal, then what's in it for Damascus? Are they supposed to just play along and allow them to pressure the US to stay and give the neocons a talking point? No. So at the moment, negotiations are closed. The problem with their political strategy is that, they say they have no friends with the mountains, but the YPG and the SDF and the Peshmerga, all they ever do is switch sides. They're unreliable allies. 1 minute they're on Russia's side, 1 minute they're actually with the FSA, the Syrian rebels. I can bring up at the start of the war when they were saying how bad Assad was, and how at the beginning they were on the FSA's side. Let's see if this picture has been memory hold. Probably. So let's see, YPG and FSA. Oh look, ta-da! For a while they were on that side, and now that side's killing them. Isn't that funny? Because the Turkish invasion includes FSA soldiers. So they can't really be trusted. And of course, they're supposed to be, some of them are supposed to be Syrian citizens. So they're supposed to be loyal to the concept of Syria. And that is a betrayal in and of itself. So finally, after all of this, after, watching as they make the same mistake as they did in Afrin, the Syrian government has had enough. And Maqdad was allowed to make this statement that, Syria will not hold talks with traitors. Syria will not hold talks with the Kurdish forces in Syria because they betrayed their country, which is true. If they have Syrian citizenship, then they betrayed their country. But some of the people fighting in Syria are actually Turkish or Iraqi Kurds. Nobody talks about that. And they caused this Turkish invasion. So how long is this going to go on for? When are they going to get a clue? Or are they going to sync with the US promises to the end, or maybe they don't care, maybe because there's certainly the SDF and the YPG, they didn't really care about Afrin when it was invaded. They didn't get angry with the US because they thought, oh, you know what, we can still control so much, like 30% of Syria's land. That's pretty good. We can take that. It has oil. But maybe now they don't even care about the northern corridor where all the Kurds live. Maybe they're happy with being toadstools in the oil fields. Because, but they're not even going to get to keep it. The Syrian military will take every piece of Syria back. The Turks might be there for a while, but we're in it for the long haul. We have time to wait. They don't. Nobody else does. So no matter how long it takes, the Syrian military will take that land back. I mean, people are saying, no. Syria needs to give them some kind of autonomy because otherwise, they will not be able to take back the land from Turkey. No, they will take back the land from Turkey. Syria has been able to face off Turkey in the past. Syria shot down a Turkish jet. Did Turkey do anything in response to that specifically? Was there like an all-out war? No, there wasn't. They of course invaded Idlib, but they were going to do that anyway. It had nothing to do with the fact that Syria shot down a Turkish jet. People don't remember these things when they make their analysis, but they really need to keep all of this in mind. More recently, in Idlib, did the presence of Turkish soldiers prevent the Syrian military from going into Idlib? No, it did not. The Syrian troops surrounded the Turkish military outpost. There's nowhere they can go. So people are forgetting also that Syria has Russia and Iran on its side. And Russia and Iran are allied with Turkey. Hard to predict the future. I've kind of predicted the future before, and I've always told you the same thing. I've told you guys that this was going to happen, that there was this strategy that, I've said in the past that Syria is waiting on Turkey to be the one that acts. They're not going to get bogged down in a war with the Kurds because they have their hands full. And at the same time, they still have their hands full even now with Idlib. So until Idlib is over, then the Syrian military can go east. But not before. Why should we waste our resources like that? So it's just a matter of time. And, if hopefully the Kurds come to their senses, because at the end of the day, their bad decisions are hurting civilians that don't deserve it. Civilians that don't even support them. When I say Kurds, I'm talking about the militias. I'm not talking about the people either. Oh, that was not a criticism. Okay. It's okay, you can criticize me. I don't mind, but it's alright. I didn't mean it to sound mean either. Sorry about that. Okay. So as I was saying, Syria is allied with Russia and Iran, and of course, because they're allied to Russia and Iran, they will be able to negotiate some kind of withdrawal of Turkey, potentially. And if worst comes to worst, this is Syria. This is sovereign Syrian land, and the Turkish presence is simply not going to be able to remain. If you look at the current situation, it has already begun. You can see that I'm trying to zoom this in, but it's not working. Sorry. I agree. Go away, leave me alone. Nope, it doesn't want to. Yeah, you can see that the Turks are already going in, but you can also see, if you can see these little red pockets right here, that's the Syrian army. So the Syrian army is already located inside northeast Syria. They have been since the start of the war. They never pulled out. And so again, the bad decisions of the Kurdish militias are affecting those Syrian soldiers at the same time. And I've seen videos of Kurds asking, where is Bashar al-Assad? Like, they want him to help, but the SDF are not allowing that to happen. They're still blocking Syrian troop entry near the oil fields. Yes, this is what I wanted to show you. And they're getting reinforcements as well. So SAA for the third time sending reinforcements to Qamishli. So they know that things are going to get hot for them. Did these SAA pockets exchange fire with the YPG? They have. They have in the past. In fact, the YPG tried to engage them and actually killed Syrian soldiers. But I guess the Syrian government had a strategic interest to not engage with them because they knew that Turkey was going to do this in the end, and they knew that it's going to turn the entire chessboard upside down. So it's can Assad come be my dentist in Australia? Assad is an ophthalmologist, so I don't think you want to get him to be your dentist. I think he's a eye surgeon, so maybe he can be your eye surgeon in Australia, but he can't be your dentist. Sorry for the pause. Iran changed Russia with selling out its air defense secrets to Israel. Oh, yes, Iran charges Russia with selling out its air defense secrets to Israel. I'm sure that Russian military has a lot of Mossad agents, unfortunately, infiltrating it. So you can't be too careful. Michael O'Grady. So, Kurds are the bad guys? Turkey is fighting Kurds in Syria with Assad's consent? No. We've never given consent to any foreigner invading our territory. We've tried to negotiate with the Kurds, especially the Syrian Kurds, who are supposed to be patriotic to Syria, for the military to go in and defend its territory. But they haven't let us. So we will be able to fight Turkey when we're able to go in. And that's going to involve a US pullout as well. Which is what the Kurds need to demand of the US. They need to demand them to pull out because their only hope is Syria. But that's not what's happening. So just because I'm pointing out what the Kurds have been doing, and they have been the bad guys, especially to the other minorities that live in Al-Haskeh. I mean, they've been ethnically cleansing not only the Assyrian Christians, but Arabs that live there too. Basically anyone who isn't Kurdish, yes. But doesn't mean Turkey hasn't been a bad guy. I mean, Turkey's been supporting Al-Qaeda in the west of Syria. So, this is not as simple as the good guys, the bad guys. Here's the simplicity of this. This is sovereign Syria. And every piece of Syria belongs to every Syrian, no matter what their ethnicity. Which is ironic that, you think liberals would support that, given that they don't like ethno-states, but they like to make this exception. Terrorists can't be loyal, it's not in them. Exactly. ISIS isn't destroyed, they can devour Syria from the inside. No, they're destroyed. I mean, as Trump said, most of them are European. A lot of flaming I see in the comments. I'm enjoying the flaming. I don't want to say anything that gets me in trouble, but the hatred doesn't affect me negatively. Okay, so, Turkey is caught on to this idea. Earlier I told you guys that sorry, there's a question here. Do you think Erdogan is secretly from Donme? I heard he was secretly Georgian, or not even secret about it, but anyway, Turkey's, if you recall the coup in Turkey that tried to remove Erdogan, I think that was the CIA's way of trying to neutralize the threat of what's going to happen. Because they get the point, the play here. What is the consolation prize for the US? We know that Israel is telling them, create this Kurdistan, it's going to be better than Turkey. Maybe it's going to be more easy to manipulate than Turkey, because Turkey has a lot more autonomy and has an army that can stand up for itself. So, here, where is Incirlik Air Base? It's right here. That's what the reason the US relies on Turkey. And here's the Kurdistan that they want to create. They could easily have well, actually it's more than that now, of course. It's all the way across the Euphrates. This is an old map. See, that's another thing. There's like 100 different maps of the proposed Kurdistan, and they're all in different they all overlap different areas. So this is not the map that they were trying to create. That one is also covering east, but they could just as easily have a US base there if needed. That's why they think just throw away Turkey and have a Kurdistan. Yes, we've already talked about that. And yeah, as I said, like, this is the part that they want to create. We've already talked about this. And this. And yes, we know what happened with Afrin. We talked about S-400. We talked about the ISIS prisoner release. Okay, here's something. It's not really that important, but I like to think of it. Oh, night. If you haven't noticed, if you were paying close attention to some of the comments that were being made, some of the schizophrenic statements that came out of the DoD, pointing out the CIA had been arming groups. They basically admitted that the CIA had been arming groups that turned out to be Al-Qaeda or were giving their weapons to Al-Qaeda. Now, why would they admit this? It's because there's a schism in the US about how to proceed in Syria. The CIA was supporting Al-Qaeda, but the Pentagon wanted to bet on the PKK terrorist organization instead. So they both had their own terrorists that they wanted to support in Syria, but it all blew up in their face in the end. So it's funny, isn't it? How that happens. I guess Syria outplayed it all. We'll see what happens in the end, but it seems like a checkmate to me because there's nothing they can do now. There's no moves that they can make other than to pull out. And Trump wants to pull out because he knows that it's a sunk cost, but the neocons are not convinced and they want to invest more and more into it. So, you know, the only other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is my old friend Morris, who, God rest his soul, died right after, a few weeks after YouTube deleted his channel, which was his family's only source of income. And he has 3 young kids. His wife is so distraught because on top of everything that happened with his YouTube channel being deleted, the man also died a couple of weeks later, and it's really sad because now, you know, his family, his kids can never go back to YouTube and watch their dad do his politics. He was one of the first men that interviewed me, and I owe him pretty much everything really when it comes to being able to speak to you guys and tell you what I think about things. And it's a tragedy. So I would like to try to help his family in any way that I can. There is a GoFundMe. But I'd also like to pressure YouTube to return his channel. I don't know if you guys can help with that, but I've made this my top tweet. So if you want to, you know, have a look at that, please do. And I guess that's some of the main topics that I wanted to hit with you guys. If there's anything we want to talk about, let me just answer some questions. Let's see. Make Israel Palestine again. Absolutely. We have had a 53-minute stream, so now I'll just take questions. Did Morris die? Yeah, I'm so sorry. Did you guys hear about this? Yeah, I think it was him. Well, that and Alex Jones, but Alex Jones, you know, he's got his own views. So he had been bitten and he got a virus, dengue. But I know that because he lost his income, he probably delayed getting healthcare because YouTube shut him down. I really blame YouTube for this death, for shutting him down. This is his family, there's his wife. um, he's, like there's an article about it too by this gentleman who kind of explained what happened. He was a really good man. Like he had a very peaceful way about him, and it's tragic. It's such a tragedy. Could you please use subtitles if posed for I am deaf, please, with respect, if possible? Sure, I would love to, but how do I use subtitles? Like, I'll try to figure out how to use subtitles, and I'll do that for you if I can. I think that does it automatically try to guess what you're trying to say? And play back. Because I can't obviously translate it live, but I heard, it might not be the best, but it can try to translate what you say. So I'm gonna try to do that for you. I'll look into it. Can you write PKK attacks on Google search? Yeah, well, if you guys don't know about the PKK and why Syria and Turkey and the United States listed it as a terrorist organization, is because even up until last year, it's been conducting attacks against civilians, and it recruits child soldiers. I mean, you know what they say, like one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Yes, I understand that. But, these guys are separatists. I prefer that term for them than terrorist, if we're gonna get political about it, because terrorist is a loaded term. Even though they have attacked civilians, they've killed innocent people, some of them Syrian refugees. They targeting civilians is, I guess, one of their policies. So like it's not like they just target military. That's, there's different types of militias. Some of them only specifically target military, but they actually target civilians as well. And yeah, so it's not just that, it's the fact that they want to create a Kurdistan. And the fact is that East Turkey used to be Armenia. I mean, why does it have to be Kurdistan? Kurds were nomadic until World War One. I said this, and people really, they don't really like the truth. I mean, some people think that the truth is racist even, and they attack you for it, but it's not me that said it. I'm not the racist one. Blame CNN, blame BBC, blame Washington Post. I will show you all of those stuff. Like, sometimes a Google search is better than scrolling. Here. There's BBC, there's Washington Post. I guess they're racist, right? Because they're telling the truth. Again, I said this in my last stream. Kurds were historically led a nomadic life. Kurds were traditionally nomadic until World War One. You can't just cross into different people's land, cross borders, cross into civilizations that pre-exist, and then suddenly say, you know what? We've decided that we like borders. We don't want to be nomadic anymore. And wherever we are, that's our border now. But that's not really how the world works. That's not right or logical in any way. I mean, you don't see the gypsies asking for a state. You don't even see the Bedouins doing it. At the end of the day, the original place that they came from, the Bedouins, was Saudi Arabia. The original place that Kurds came from was Iran, because they are an Iranian people. So I guess I'll go back to taking some of your questions. Deaf Guy said she'll look into it. Deaf Guy, she said she'll look into it. A bit mean, but yes, I will. I will look into it. I promise you. I just don't know how to do it. Like, if you guys can make a suggestion, that would be great. Um, Kurdistan was real, but Ataturk won his campaign. Well, you know, if we look at historically, Kurdistan, well, the word Kurd is recent. It's not even that old compared to the ancient history of Assyria, of Armenia, even of Turkey. Kurd etymologically came from Middle Persian and meant tent dweller. And I don't mean to be insulting. I mean, I don't understand why Kurds feel like they need to invent an entirely separate history that doesn't exist, that has no artifacts, that has no map or building or any kind of thing like that, when they could just accept that they were part of the Persian Empire. Isn't that good enough? It's nothing to be ashamed of. So who is orchestrating the Kurds? Are Turkey and Syria fighting separately? Turkey and Syria are fighting each other. And Turkey is fighting the Kurds. And Syria is not. Kurds need a nation of their own, but too bad for them. They are backstabbers and easy to manipulate. I don't think they need a nation of their own. They already have Iran, from which they originate. They can live within the nations that already exist peacefully as equal citizens with everybody else. I mean, why does it have to be a nation of their own? Why, like, how many little statelets of minorities are you going to create in sovereign nations? Are you going to do one for the Assyrians, one for the Yazidis, one for the Armenians in this location and Armenians in that location? For the Bedouin Arabs, are they going to have a state? Why not have a state for there's 1.2 million Kurds in Germany. Are you going to have a state for Kurds there? Is that how it's going to, like, why does this only apply to the Middle East? Because project for the new American century. Project for a new Middle East. That's why. Because they want to redraw the Middle East, because that's what empires do. I mean, that's what Sykes-Picot did. Syria was much bigger than what people always say Syria's borders are fake. Sykes-Picot drew them and therefore they're fake, and we should cut up Syria. No, they're fake because Syria's true borders are much bigger and include Lebanon and Palestine. So in 1920, this was declared as an independent Syria. This was Syria. And, this is natural Syria, which means all of these people speak with the same accent. We can all understand each other. If I were to go to Egypt or Iraq or Saudi Arabia, their accent is completely different, and in fact, their dialect borders on a different language. It's very hard for me to understand. But if I were to put myself anywhere in this place, I would understand their Arabic completely, because it has Aramaic influence from when we all used to speak Aramaic. That's why. So this is true Syria. When people say the Syrian borders are fake, I'm like, yeah, because the true borders are this. Not because it should be divided even more. So you have to watch out for that propaganda. And who split up Syria? It was the French and the British that split up Syria. How did they split it up? On ethnocentric and religious lines. And today it's no different. They're trying to do the same thing. And they have the leftist support. I mean, these leftists are some of the most racist and imperialist people I've ever seen. Ilhan Omar being one of them. It's hilarious what they have no logic in their mind. I thought Palestine was a part of Jordan. Jordan and Palestine were a part of Syria. Greater Syria. True Syria. Natural Syria. It's all the Levant. This is the Syria that we fought the French for. This is the Syria that Yusuf al-Azmi died to defend. I mean, we tried to resist the partition and the French invasion. Let me show you Yusuf al-Azmi, Syria's greatest hero. Because, when the French, well, that's not him. Let me see. The Battle of Maysalun should bring it up the correct spelling in English. All of these men in the Battle of Maysalun died to defend the idea of Syria and to show, historically, that Syria resisted partition. And this is Yusuf al-Azmi. And he was the general that led them to a battle where, he said, we know we're all going to die, but we're doing this for the pages of history. To remember that we believed in our sovereign Syria, and it was, and this Syria that we fought for is not even in the history books, or because Syrians declared independence, and France and the UK said no, and that's how Israel was created, because of the failure of that battle. That's why Israel was created. That's why we're in the mess now, because unfortunately at that time we were just out of the Ottoman Empire's grasp, and we didn't have our own defenses. And ever since then, the Syrians have been, this is the female soldier that fought in that battle. And she was one of the first. This was 100 years ago almost. So Syria since then has just been trying to rebuild itself, and the constant imperialist wars are trying to cut it away piece by piece. And it's harder and harder to do, because naturally Syria wants to be whole. Okay, let's go to some questions, and then after some questions I'll probably let you guys go and maybe sleep or not sleep, but we'll see how it goes. Syrian girl, just comment on Avi Yemeni's involvement in 9/11. I shouldn't have even read that out. Avi Yemeni had nothing to do with 9/11, but Israel had something to do with 9/11. Okay, so 5 dancing Israelis. Look it up. There's been some new FBI released documents about it. There must be more than one type of leftist, because many agree with a lot of geopolitical critique. Okay, when I talk about leftists, what I mean is liberals. I don't mean hardcore communists or tankies. They don't even call themselves leftists. I'm talking about the typical Trotskyist, Chomsky following, SJW, watches Ellen DeGenerate, that kind of thing. I'm not talking about the true far left. Well, at least Syrians still have a country. Palestine doesn't have a country. Yes, but that's why Syria is so important, because Syria is the hope that Palestine will be part of Syria again. Syria is the hope that we can end the occupation and stop the ethnic cleansing. That's why Israel wants to get rid of Syria, because it knows it's the last thing that threatens its existence. What about China? Well, China's traditionally supposed to be on Syria's side, on Russia's side. It vetoed some of the resolutions. They promised to rebuild Syria. At the moment, though, the Israelis are trying to woo them, because I think the Israelis, or at least the Zionists, see that the US empire might last forever, and they're kind of laying the groundwork to jump ship onto China. But it's not exactly working out for them, because China doesn't really have an evangelical church to control. And they don't really care about anything but the bottom line. Did you know that Assad's father went to Russia? I don't know, there's a lot of propaganda. I'm not sure, I haven't heard that. And changed Russia's mind. I have to look at that. I'm not sure. But I know the Assad of today is a patriot. Otherwise he would have left a long time ago. And Or he could have just left Damascus and just lived in Tartus and Latakia and decided to create his own state there if it was only about him, you know? He could have done that, but he didn't. Great job, thank you. Antifa is left. Yeah, Antifa is left, but Antifa is a Trotskyist group, really. It's not a tanky group or a communist group, far left group. That's different. Like, Antifa don't like North Korea, for example. I'm still hoping to drink Barada beer. Yeah, it's good beer. I don't really enjoy alcohol, but every now and then I will drink a Syrian beer. It's refreshing. Can I please say something in Arabic? كيفك ديفيد؟ اسمك أباسي؟ من وين أنت؟ Is that good? Would Gaddafi have supported Assad if he was still alive? I would say so. I mean, Assad supported Gaddafi. Like, if it was against the NATO intervention there. Iran wasn't, unfortunately, but I think so. They really didn't have anything against each other. Assad is a real man. I should really read these in my mind before I read them out, right? You never know what you're gonna get. You should set up Streamlab accounts so people can send donations live with questions. I will look into that, guys. Thank you. If that's what you want to do. I do have a Patreon if you're interested in donating to me. Actually, you know, with the Patreon, I kind of just like to see people, followers, even if it's just $1. It's more about like how many are following rather than how much money I'm given. So like, yeah, this is something I really like to see. It's not so much the money, but it's more so the patrons. Of course, I would do this even if it was for free, because I feel like, and I have been doing it for free for the last 4 or 5 years. I've been demonetized by YouTube. But this just helped me like create this studio, start these streams, buy a camera, get my Blue Yeti, you know, buy some lights. The money I'm getting, I'm investing in this, and you know, everything I get as gifts from friends. But my goal in life is not really to be a rich person. Money for me is a means to help people and to help my people, or to help give you guys information, or to help my family. I'm not really about the dollar. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. Formerly my education is as a chemist, and I could be doing that instead, and it would make me a hell of a lot more money. But I just feel like this is my calling in life, and it's a duty. So I will continue to do it, but your support is always appreciated. Of course, I have a Bitcoin as well, which I should advertise, and I know that people feel more comfortable with that. But the Bitcoin has helped me a lot as well, and I'll be, you know, I just want to be able to do this no matter what the establishment does to me, because they have attacked me. You know, they've attacked me at my university. They've targeted me. I'm sure they would like to see me just stop, and I don't want to give them the satisfaction. Okay, Syrian girl, you need to write a book. Oh, wow, it's scrolling fast. Yeah. Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, I don't want to like toot my own horn or anything, but this is the honest truth. I don't own a home or anything like that. I'm not making money off tweets. I'm sure if I had taken the other line, yeah, I would have had a book deal by that woman that wrote Harry Potter. What do you have to say about Syria being involved in the creation of the PKK? No, Syria wasn't involved in the creation of the PKK, but at the time, Russia did pressure Syria into backing the PKK because they wanted to use it as a counterbalance against Turkey, which was backing the Muslim Brotherhood in Syria. So that was the reason for that then. But then the PKK started killing civilians, and so Syria declared that it was a terrorist organization. Why haven't Middle East allies worked together to fend off imperialists? It has to do with divide and conquer. It can be used on Europeans as well. I mean, look at Ukraine, look at Spain. It's interests, and there's a lot of people that they want to be king of their own little island. They don't care what happens to their country, so they don't care if it means splitting it up. And it's greed at the end of the day. Greed is causing it, and weakness. And at the end of the day, there wouldn't be war in Syria if Syria wasn't opposed to hegemony. You know? If Syria had gone along exactly with what the globalists want, if it accepted genetically modified food and a World Bank, then there wouldn't be conflict in the Middle East. Syria isn't Europe because Europe has already fallen. That's why there's conflict in the Middle East, because we're still yet to fall. We're standing up for ourselves. I'm just getting a message, sorry guys. Okay, so there was a funny thing that happened, guys, that you guys should listen to. It's the Lindsey Graham got trolled by these Russian guys. Do you remember the guys that called Nikki Haley and said that, we need to discuss Binomo, this fictitious country? Like, she's a member of the United Nations. She's supposed to know every country at the UN. And she's talking about Binomo as if it was real. You really should listen to it if you don't know about it. Let me show you. So the same guys that pranked her actually pranked Lindsey Graham and saved the audio of it. Oh, turns out Binomo is a real thing. So is Limpopo, which I'm gonna get to. Yeah. So they told her that, like, South China is attacking this place called Binomo, which doesn't exist. And she says, we're aware of that, and we're already trying to do something about it. It's so embarrassing. But the same guys, they pranked Lindsey Graham. And again, I've been tweeting so much that scrolling through them is not going to help. Maybe if I write media. Yeah. Well. Sorry, guys. Yes. This thing. What you need to know is Turkey annexed a piece of Syria during the fall of the Ottoman Empire. And there's still a lot of Syrians there. And if you look at a map of Turkey's Arab-speaking locations, that's the only place that has them. Because it used to be part of Syria. Right there, this pocket. So Syria hasn't forgotten about it. We're still trying to get it back. And, people point out that the Turks may have annexation plans for other parts of Syria too, which they deny, but we're aware of it. So we're not gonna give in to that. And don't worry, we will resist. Of course, now we're sovereign under the United Nations, so it would be illegal to do that anyway. It would be very, very difficult. So it says, block the trolls, SG. They work for Israel. I don't really know how to block. Maybe there's 3 dots on the side there. That could help. I haven't. Okay, next troll. Watch your back, because now I know how to block. Notice me, Syrian girl. I noticed you, shining diamond. You were shining. A lot of Syrians in Brazil. Yeah, that's true. Actually, I think one of Brazil's presidents was originally from Syria. Or Lebanon, was it? Syrian girl, what political ideology do you most identify with? Tough call. I don't really like to label myself, but if I was gonna choose a group inside Syria, it would probably be the SSMP. How do you define a troll? Okay, look, a troll in reality is someone who is faking an opinion to get a rise out of people. So when people call someone who is just hating you a troll, they don't really know what they're talking about, right? So why not just call them haters? Well, that would mean you have to admit that people hate you. And I'm happy to do that. I am someone who has people that hates them. And if you stand for nothing, then no one will hate you. But if you stand for something, you certainly will have people that will hate you. Have you seen Joker? Not yet. Have you ever had drunk chicken? No. You should stream on Twitch. Isn't Twitch for gaming? I mean, I enjoy games, but I haven't really had a chance. Isn't Ralph Nader Syrian? Ralph Nader is Syrian, yes. Yes, Shimon Peres' real name is Simon Persky. When they went to Israel, they all changed their names to like non-European or Russian and German sounding names. Do you think Turkey is going to get their ISIS fighters back? No, I don't. I think the whole idea that ISIS is going to be a danger again is a bit of propaganda that the Kurds and the neocons are spreading to try to pressure the US to stay longer. ISIS is not going to come back. The Syrian, it's just simply solved. If the Kurds were really truly concerned about ISIS going off and into, returning and escaping from these camps, they could have just handed them over to the Syrian army. But they didn't, because they wanted to use them as a bargaining chip. Turkey is not going to bring back ISIS. However, Al-Qaeda, these groups, the FSA, of course we know they're sympathetic with Al-Qaeda. That's always a potential. In Idlib, Al-Qaeda is there. So it's so funny, but the US has never admitted this. It is only now that it's in their interest to admit it that they might start to point out that, yeah, these guys might be Al-Qaeda. So watch it. I've seen some indication of that, but they will probably get louder as the battle goes forward. Sorry, I'm trying to read them in my mind before I read them out, because that could be a disaster. Turkey took it from the French, actually, not from Syria. Excuse me, but Syrian land doesn't belong to France. A mandate isn't a colony. This is all it's the same argument that Israel uses. Can you speak Persian? Of course not. Have you met Assad? I had an opportunity to do so, but unfortunately I couldn't go. Screening. Yes, I have to screen these comments. Am I related to Darius Mirzajani? I don't even know who that is. So no, I doubt it. Aloha from Hawaii. Syrian girl dog whistles way too hard. Or maybe not hard enough. I know what you're talking about. Well, it's have you watched Nick Fuentes' show? Yeah, I have watched it. He could be worth reaching out to be a guest. Yeah, I would love him to be a guest. I'm still working out how to use this stuff, so it would be good if he comes to my show, and vice versa. I know that we're not allowed to talk to certain people, but I'm probably already one of those people. What time is it here? I'm in GMT +8, which means it's 10:30. Syria is a Catholic nation. Well, I think Syria has more claim to being an Orthodox nation. At the moment, look, when it comes to politics, I am a bit pragmatic. I understand that Tulsi, people have concerns about her, and she might not be of course she may turn as Trump turned, but she is the safest bet at the moment if you still believe that the US is a democracy, which is why I'm almost certain she will not win. As sad as that is, she will not win because she doesn't have a Jewish son-in-law. I mean, she has the whole Hindu thing, and the Zionist lobby can support that, but I just don't think I think her loyalty is to the US, so that's going to be a problem. Jason Goodman would be a good person to come up to speed on the technical side. Yeah, we had an interview together, actually, and he helped me a lot. Syriana analysis would be great as well. Getting messages. Okay. So what do you think, guys? Is there anything else you want to talk about? Did I show you the Limpopo thing? I didn't show you the Limpopo thing. Yeah, there's footage of the US pulling out. I don't know, sometimes Twitter repeats tweets and it doesn't really... Have you guys seen this? It's funny. Yeah, they're trying to establish a Hindu nationalist alliance. Yes, I can see that. They always try to control some, because they say, oh, look, we hate Muslims. You should be on our side. You Hindus hate Muslims too. And in the meantime, they tell Saudi Arabia, look, we love Muslims, but we hate the Shiite Muslims, so you should be on our side. It's... How false for that? Greetings from Germany. Welcome from around the world. Talk about Kurds, Armenians, and Syria. I think I already did that, guys. I don't want to repeat it too much, but we know that the Turks and the Kurds committed the Armenian genocide. The one thing that is interesting is Ararat Mountain. That is a pet peeve, for Armenians that I know as well. So this is mountain called Mount Ararat, which is holy to the Armenians because it was part of their heartland, and back when Armenia was much bigger, and it was said to be the location that Noah landed his ship after the flood. So it has a religious reason to be important. But it just so happens that the Kurds claimed it as part of their proposed state too. At the moment, it's under Turkish control. So the fact that the Kurds claimed Ararat Mountain kind of is one of the things the Armenians point out as being how they're encroaching on their historical land. And not only that, but the Assyrians, if you look at the Assyrian Empire, it has so many artifacts that prove its existence and prove that the Assyrians that live in Iraq have historical claim. There's physical evidence of North Iraq being the traditional homeland of Armenians, the first place. So, of Assyrians. But they try to wipe that out because it goes against the Kurdistan thing. And, you know, Assyrians in North Iraq tried to get their own autonomous region. And you would think for an empire, they would support another division, another ethno-state, like micro-state. But the US will never support an autonomous Assyria in Iraq for one very good but not so obvious reason. Because the Israelis hate the Assyrians. They hate them because 5,000 years ago they blamed them for destroying Judea and making their king kneel to the ground. Like, it's a 5,000-year-old grudge that they hold. So yeah, that kind of autonomy is not going to happen. There was the Assyrian Empire, but I'm talking about the Nivene plains, the original homeland. You know, of course, they took over Babylonia, etc., etc. But this is today, and if you know what's happening, what the Kurds are doing, they're pushing people out of their homes, like Israel does. They're buying people's homes for 1/10 of the price, and then they're claiming, oh well, Assyrians sold us this house, like Israel does to Palestinians, because they'll say, like, you either accept 1/10 of the price, or we're just going to take your house anyway. If you look at my video, there's footage of them bulldozing farmlands. Sorry guys, it's actually on Twitter. Just have it. Actually, if you want the whole video, it's also on YouTube. So this is like it's on my channel as well. Just look up The Truth About the Kurds. It's one of the videos, and you can see that they've been doing this ethnic cleansing campaign. Oh, well, I'm not going to play it because it's long, but you guys should have a look at it. So it's, what we were talking about, Binomo or Limpopo and the Assyrians. Okay, one thing I do want to show you, if I can find it. That's the thing. This is why my videos are good, because Kurds have been culturally appropriating Assyrian history. Because they don't have any history of their own in the region. They've also been vandalizing like Assyrian historical sites. There's one picture I'm looking for that says, okay, look at this. 6,000-year-old Kurdish Erbil citadel at night. Historically, Kurds arrived... Okay, Erbil is one of the oldest cities in the world. It's like 6,000 years old. Historically, Kurds arrived in Erbil in the 7th century. So, to say that they've been there, that they built it, it's completely like culturally appropriating Iraq's history and the Sumerian and Assyrian history. They've had nothing to do with Sumeria. It's not their linguistic group. It's not. They are from Iran originally. So another one, I'm trying to find it because it's so annoying. It's one where they had a museum that said Kurdistan, cradle of civilization, and all of the stuff inside was like Assyrian heritage. You get these like things thrown around like, oh, there's been 5,000 years of Kurdish history. The word Kurd hasn't even existed for 1,000 years. Let's see, hopefully I can find it. Here it is. Yeah, this is what the US supports when it supports this. And of course, who's complaining about it? The Assyrians. And nobody wants to listen because Israel doesn't really like Assyrians. And that's why whenever they talk about the Assyrians, they'll always just call them the Christians. They'll never refer to them by their ethnic group. They kind of want to wipe them out from existence. So here it is. Anyway, it's it's wiping out people just the same way that they're wiping out Palestinians. They're trying to claim that they have never existed. That's how genocide works. So I guess let me see if there's any more questions, guys, and then we can. I still haven't shown you Binomo and Bimpopo, but in any case, what it is this. Yeah, those Russians, they pranked Lindsey Graham and they got him to say some outlandish stuff on the phone, including he said that the YPG was a threat and a problem, and that he warned the president, Trump, not to support them. And now he's completely saying the exact opposite thing. Isn't that hilarious? Isn't this interesting? It's a complete hypocrisy. And if you haven't seen this video of Ellen DeGeneres, have a look at it. Look it up. Yes, let's see. Anything? Nope. I have tweeted a lot, guys. You should look it up and listen to the talk. I did tweet it, but anyway. Sorry, I'm not gonna bore you anymore with any more scrolling. I'm sure it's made some people dizzy. So, never mind. So, let us do some final questions, and then I think we'll call it a stream. Are you a Zionist? No, I am not. No. Does Kurdistan exist in Iraq still? The KRG exists. The Iraqi Kurdistan. I guess. That it exists now. It never existed before. It exists since the Iraq War. Don't go! Okay, I'm gonna go. I can't stay forever, but I'll go for longer. Do I speak Aramean? I am learning Aramean. I speak a little bit, but I'm not from Ma'lula, where Aramean. I'm from Damascus. Aramean is spoken in Ma'lula, but I want to see it re-emerge in Syria as a main language. And in Ma'lula, it's not just Christians that speak it; it's Muslims and Christians too. So being Aramean doesn't really have to do with your religion. Let's see here. Any more? Oh. Syria was Catholic before the Vatican and then became Orthodox. I'm not so sure about that. Orthodoxy is a very old place. Oh, that's Tony Blackhouse. Hey, Tony. He's in Sydney. Oh. I understand you're in Australia. Are you familiar with Five Eyes surveillance agreement? I've heard about that actually. I have heard about that. Is that an agreement where different countries can survey each other's territory? Is Israel in on it? Let me know, Kerfont. Can you describe any linguistic features of Aramaic that you find interesting? Well, I think the most interesting thing is the guttural stop, because, for example, in Arabic, if you were to say time, you would say waqt. It's hard to even say. Waqt with the Q, but with Syrian Arabic, we say what without the qa, because for us the qa is a guttural stop. It's just what. So it's kind of, I think, a relic of Aramaic, which I find really interesting, because when I speak to people that aren't from the Levant and I do the guttural stop, they say that this is incorrect. This is like speaking Arabic with an Aramaic accent. Is Assad okay with Turkey attacking the Kurds? Guys, Assad's never gonna say he's okay with Turkey invading the country, and we aren't. We're not okay with any foreigner illegally invading the country, especially what like Turkey has done so far, and of course we don't want our civilians to be attacked. We don't want Syrian Kurds to be attacked. Not all Syrian Kurds support, what the YPG or SDF has done. I feel like I don't want to bore you guys because I did say that before. But there is something to be said of an ancient Chinese proverb or strategy or part of the war stratagems that says that, watch the fires burning across the river. So if the SDF has declared the Syrian army its enemy, and Turkey has declared the Syrian army its enemy, and those two forces are going to fight each other, and the US has declared the Syrian army its enemy, like, we're not going to enter the fray. So that's basically what's happening. I wanted to show you the comic again, but never mind. So good night to you, Lupe. Rumford, you should do woke ASMR. I don't know what woke ASMR is, but I can tell you that ASMR is really infuriating. Just, it's for me, I'm one of those people that it's like getting your nails, and if somebody does the whispering thing, just really, I can't. I wouldn't even if I were to do it for myself, I would feel like I need to punch myself in the face. I guess they call that misophonia. I have that. I have misophonia to like an intense degree where I just have to leave sometimes in certain situations because of the sound. Hebrew is Phoenician mixed with Aramaic and Old Arabic. Hebrew is like a copy of their language copied the Phoenician alphabet, and then they copied the Aramaic alphabet. Can I speak Aleppo's Arabic? My grandma was from Aleppo, and I know how they speak. So I don't know if I can mimic her very well, though. I'm from Damascus, that's why. But I love the way she used to speak. What do you study in college? I studied chemistry. I have a chemistry degree, and I was doing my PhD before the war began. Well, during the war, I started my PhD early on. Australia dropped bombs in Syria too. Yeah, they claim to. I think some of the time, they claim to have actually attacked Syrian soldiers while they were fighting ISIS, but they want to be accepted by America. So they're like high school kids. She has eidetic memory or what? Is that where you just remember every sound? I'm good at remembering what people say. I'm glad I didn't read out what you wrote for it, Dex. I'm glad. I almost did. I'm glad I didn't. Okay, guys. Is there anything else that you want me to say? There's, it's been 103 minutes, which is a long time. And I don't want to go on and on and on forever, because I don't really like the sound of my own voice. So if you would like anything in particular of me to say, or talk about, Alex Jones has his own opinions on Israel, and he's helped a lot Syria, so I don't want to I'm not a disloyal person, and I respect other people's point of view, and I hope that Alex sees things my way, and I try my best to convince him, and at least he's open to it. That's all I can ask, really. So, anything else? How do I feel about Marxist-Leninist tankies? Well, I did an interview with one good friend of mine who happens to be a Stalinist tanky, and he's part of Hands of Syria as well, and I think I think he's I don't find I think there is a little thing to say about horseshoe theory. They are very similar at the end of the day. And you're going to listen to his views on my channel soon, hopefully. Who did 9/11? Mossad. It's not even a secret anymore. Why did you decide to come to Australia? It wasn't my decision. I was 7 years old, and my parents decided it. And my mum really liked Kylie Minogue, and she was watching Neighbours at the time, and she was like, Australia! And her dad was against the idea, and he said, why are you going to Sumatra? Which Sumatra is the place in Indonesia. Like, oh, my daughter, she's going to the end of the world. She's going to Sumatra. But yeah, my mum was sold on Australia due to propaganda, I suppose. It's not a bad place. It's very idyllic. Bit too quiet. She came for the barbecue and the kangaroos. She came for the neighbors, the nice neighbors. When is the next live chat? Maybe like I'm going to do a video, and it's going to be about what's happening now, but in a concise format, not in a live stream. I think I've done a lot of live streams, so I'm going to make 1 or 2 videos, and then I'm going to try to live stream more consistently, like maybe once every 2 weeks or 1 month. I don't want to make a goal that is unachievable, because then just get depressed about having not achieved the goal that you've set for yourself. So I'm going to make it an easy goal. How old are you now? Never ask a girl her age and her weight. The schismatics didn't exist until 1054. This is a thing for you guys, you Christians. Like, I don't know enough to argue about that, but I do know that at least Islam was the result of a heretical Syrian priest that didn't believe that Jesus was God's son, and that's why Islam was born. And of course, Syria is one of the oldest Christianity before like Catholicism and Orthodoxy was a thing. There was just Christians. Thanks, guys. How much do you weigh? Well, I don't know. It's good enough, right? I'm not obese. I'm not overweight. But I'm not going to give you a number, because you never ask a girl how much she weighs. Or how old she is. It's considered against, it's not very polite. So, can marry a Christian is haram? Well, if you go by Islamic law, it's haram. Does Syria arm Palestinians? I should hope so. Yes, it does. Is Mr. Morris in your tweet? Yes. Unfortunately, Mr. Morris has died. If you don't know, please check it out. Please have a look at it. He was deleted off YouTube. All his videos were taken down. And he died. Do you work for Russia? Russia hasn't paid me, so no. Where's my paycheck? Everybody keeps saying I work for Russia, but I'm not getting any paychecks except for from you guys, so yeah, Syriac is spoken in Syria, in Malula and in parts of Greater Syria as well. Syria and Palestine. Is there a genetic link between Palestinians and Syrians? We're all Levantine. It's the same ethnicity. Are we Russian? Are Russians us? Is the question you should be asking. Okay, guys, I guess I think it's time I should let you go because the conversation is divulging down a bit. Yes, I'm so sorry. Morris has died. Please, if you can support his family in any way, please have a look at this tweet. I'm going to pin it. Not this one, the other one. This one. This is GoFundMe. So some people donated to his PayPal account, and I'm not sure if his family can access that yet. But this GoFundMe is supposed to get to them. Okay, guys. So I'm going to go now. Thank you very much for the stream and watching. I think 110 minutes is more than enough to be bored of me. So I'm not gonna... I'll try to come on Twitch, and okay, bye. That was quick. I'll see you later. I'll talk about other topics at another video, but this is more specifically about what's happening now. And now we're going into other topics, so I want to keep it about this. So I'm gonna let you go, and have a nice day, everyone. Now wait as I figure out how to stop this. How do you stop this? Oh wait, here it is. Bye bye.